that falls on the middle and working class people.
We get into it now with Bloomberg Intelligence's senior U.S. policy analyst. Is Paul Sweeney going to be upset with me for doing all this BI? They're the best in the business. Nathan's phone's been ringing. We talk about it every week here. Good to see you, Nathan. Dean, about confirmations now, or is it just foregone that Trump's getting his team?
Well, I think that he's going to get most of his team. I mean, look, from the GOP perspective, you can only reject a couple of those. And I think based off of the Democratic questions we saw this week, a lot of that is being saved for Tulsi Gabbard and, Patel over at the FBI. Right. So I think a lot of the questions, look, Senator Marco Rubio, he's going to have the easiest path to confirmation. Scott Bessent, he's going to get a lot of Democratic votes. Even the Pete Hegseth hearing with Secretary of Defense, the Democrats were sort of curtailed in their criticism of him, which makes me think that a lot of these nominees are going to get through.
So how did he do yesterday in making the argument that what you think about tariffs might not be true, that we have our own approach, that the composite of all of our policies will in fact spur growth, not inflation or balloon deficits? Is the market buying this? Because you look at the bond market and I'm wondering.
So, I don't think the market, so let's just back up. The market, I think, views Scott Bessent as the moderate voice when it comes to these tariff arguments, especially when you compare him to Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary nominee, and so forth like that. However, Scott Bessent has said, and in that confirmation hearing, he said these tariffs are coming. Yes. It's just a matter of how hard and how high and how quickly, or is it going to be a way to conduct negotiations? And I think that's the Wall Street view here. The Wall Street view is that come Monday, when these executive orders are signed, there's still going to be wiggle room. Now, he may be in the minority here, but I would also argue that, when it comes to tariffs, there are a lot of other groups involved, Commerce, USTR, and so forth like that. Right. And I think Scott Bessent's message, why, he answered a lot about the tariffs initially, he focused a lot more on the hearing on tax reform because I think that for him, the tax extensions of 2017 are the most important thing for him in 2025.
Well, and he's framing it as we don't do this, as we just heard, the biggest tax cut tax hike rather on the middle class. But when you start talking about phasing in tariffs or some of the other ideas that have come about, it's creating a new level of uncertainty. Would Wall Street rather know what's going to happen, even if it's across the board 10% tariffs, versus being uncertain about potentially lower tariffs that would be friendlier to an investor?
So obviously when you get certainty, you at least get the ability to do what, you can react to it. So, but there are a couple ways that President Trump will put these tariffs into place. And most of them involve ordering the Department of Commerce to conduct a study and then come back in 2 to 3 months, and those negotiations take place. I think Wall Street would actually prefer that route.
Okay.
However, President Trump does have the ability to declare an economic disaster, and these tariffs, we looked into it. All you have to do is go over to Customs and change a number and hit enter.
How about that?
And these numbers go up, and these tariffs take place. That would be much more of a shock, and I think Wall Street really wouldn't want that. However, he did this back in 2019 as well with Mexico. Representatives from Mexico City came to Washington. There was a negotiation, and those tariffs threats never actually came into fruition. So we continue to believe that, yes, we are going to see an executive order on Monday about tariffs, but we continue to believe that this executive order maybe put out a small tariff, but will lead to further negotiations before the high tariff takes into place.
Do we get crypto EOs on Monday? And where are we on this National Reserve? I still don't understand how it works. Maybe you can tell me if this is going to happen.
Yeah, so I think we are going to get a cryptocurrency executive order. It will be one of those more symbolic ones saying this is the cryptocurrency is going to be like a national priority or something like that.
Got it.
But what you're talking about is this idea of a cryptocurrency, sovereign wealth fund, if you will.
A Fort Knox of Bitcoin.
Exactly.
How do you do that?
Senator Lummis from Wyoming is heavily involved. The idea here is that you would potentially buy 5% of the world's Bitcoin.
Wow.
Now, I think what will happen is the United States has approximately around 212,000 Bitcoin through enforcement actions.
Right.
Some of it sprinkled over Commerce, some of it over Treasury. And President Trump could put an executive order out saying, look, let's put that together and call that the sovereign wealth fund.
Okay.
But President Trump has also voiced support for U.S.-based cryptocurrencies, which is not Bitcoin. So if I'm a holder of Bitcoin and I want this to go up to $175,000, and President Trump is looking at U.S.-based cryptocurrencies,
there's a conversation. We're totally out of time. There's a conversation in the MAGA social media world that believes the government will sell all of that seized crypto just to drive the price down and embarrass Donald Trump. Could that happen?
Well, Senator Lummis actually spoke against some of the selling that occurred yesterday. So
Yeah?
we'll see.
What happened yesterday? Is that what they're doing?
Some of the U.S. Marshals sold a little bit of Bitcoin.
So it's happening. A little bit.
A little bit.
We have to talk more about that.